you pictured Harry, what is it that you picture him as? I mean, is there any one particular image of an actor? Is he a Humphrey Bogart type of guy? Is he...
In my head, I see the Dresden Files as an animated feature in my head.
Okay.
And when I'm reading, it's an animated feature. When I'm writing, it's mostly panels, like in a comic book, which was why writing the comic book was so much fun. But the Dresden that's coming out in the comic book is very, very close to my mental image of Dresden. But in terms of actual actors, he's somewhere between. I mean, if you take the facial features of Mulder and Ash and Solo, he's somewhere. There's kind of a blend of there. He's got kind of Solo smirk, and he's got Mulder's hair, and cranium, and he's got Ash's chin. He's got the killer chin. He's got Bruce's killer chin.
The chin of doom, as
yes,
it were.
if chins could kill.
You mentioned writing for a committee versus writing normally. Novels.
Right.
Are there any rituals that you follow that when you sit down to write, do you light some incense and listen to Yanni? Or...
Usually I've got to have a movie that's either so terrible that it's not going to distract me very much, or that I've seen so often that I only need to look. I know when to look up for the good parts so that I can write. So it's like I'll start it up. I'll have like the Lord of the Rings trilogy on, or I'll stick in the Buffy DVDs or Babylon 5 or something like that. Big Trouble in Little China. Snakes on a Plane, also a very good one. In that you don't look up all that often. Yeah, my kid actually did his German class. They had to do a movie where they translated things into German, and I can't say it. I can't remember it myself, but the translation of "I am sick and tired of these mother-loving snakes on this mother-loving plane." It's hilarious.
I need to find someone that can do that for me. Then.
Yeah, it's hilarious in German. It really is.
That's insane.
The teacher gave him the assignment. I didn't have anything to do with it.
Well, and with modern education, I mean, you went to school. You said you created Dresden back in the mid '90s, early '90s.
'96, yeah.
Okay. Do you think education, whether it's collegiate or high school, embraced enough of the creative aspects of people's minds, or is that something that?
Oh, that's a very big subject, and one that I'm probably not well grounded enough in to give you an intelligent answer. As far as education itself, well, I mean, really, as far as education itself, I know that I went and got my English degree, my degree in English literature as my degree, and I was going into the professional writing program, which was a journalism program. And that's where I was doing my writing.
It's kind of where I'm at now, actually.
Yeah, and I wrote the first book of the Dresden Files in an effort to prove how wrong my writing teacher's theories on the craft of writing were. Because I'd been arguing with her for several semesters, and I knew that I was right because I had an English literature degree, whereas she had merely published 40 novels. And so I said, you know what, this semester I'm just going to be your good little writing robot. I'm going to fill out all these papers and do all these little forms for each chapter and do this whole outline thing and these character worksheets. I'm just going to do all that and show you what kind of horrible cookie-cutter paddling crap comes out. And I wrote the first book of the Dresden Files.
Score one for the 40 novels.
Yeah, which shows, that showed her all right. I don't know. I think not enough emphasis is placed, at least in higher education. I think not enough emphasis is placed on the actual craft of storytelling, and that there's a lot to be said for having a good, solid grounding in that before you start setting off to start embellishing it. I mean, if you don't know how to tell a solid story first. There's very little use in having having the gold filigree and trim on the car that doesn't run. If you can't get it to drive somewhere, what's the use making it look pretty?
And it's like the $50 rust bucket with the $5,000 stereo.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, your novels are not ones where we read them and go, "Oh crap, Harry might die." We're pretty assured that much like a Star Trek episode, that he's gonna survive the novel. But who we end up worrying about are the periphery characters. Are there any of those characters that if you did kill them off for any reason, would just break your heart? That you'd be willing to do it, but...
For that matter, pretty much any of them. I mean, all the characters are something that I've taken a lot of time to try and build up, to try and create, and they're all kind of the children of my imagination, as it were. I would hate anything bad to happen to any of them, but at the same time, as a craftsman of a story, I know the value in having that threat there, making sure that it is real and it's not just, oh, everybody's going to die this week. And, well, you know, it's like, no, that's not going to happen. But you know, I know the value of keeping that there, and well, we'll just have to see how well I can do it in the future. I've got plans for it, and we'll just have to see how they turn out, or whether I wind up isolating a portion of the audience, or what have you. But
introduce some twins. One gets an ear cut off. And,
yeah, something like
you
that.
know, and maybe half the cast dies by the end of book 20. And
oh well, yeah. Well, you know, honestly, I don't even see how Harry's going to survive until book 20. I got to figure out some way.
He does seem to get knocked around quite a bit, and I think that
does.
you've paced it out rather well, where you know he loses something of his connection to the real world, but then he gains something in power. How much of that is a purposeful commentary, and how much of that is just the evolution of the character?
None of it's personal commentary. I don't write the books to be making. I don't want to be making trying to make profound statements or philosophical statements or otherwise. I'm trying to write entertainment. If I do come up with something, if I kick over a rock while I'm in the middle of construction and it turns out to be something cool and valuable, so be it. But you know, maybe it's as much a learning experience for me writing it as anything else. And I wouldn't, at this point in my life, I wouldn't presume to be trying to teach people what I thought was philosophically important. I think people need to learn on their own. But generally speaking, though, there are some themes that I think do recur over and over, and that's the use and abuse of power is one of them, and the power of love and sacrifice is another. Now, those are things I do believe very strongly in, but I don't ever plan the book to set out and say, here's your moral lesson for today. You know, let's encapsulate it in a little pithy 2-sentence line at the end of the episode, and I never really appreciated that myself, so I'm not trying to push anything on it. The absolute favorite bit of Dresden that I ever wrote was Dresden talking to a character named Butters about what was going on, and there were all these bad things going on, but that the White Council of Wizards was not going to do anything about it for various reasons. And Butters like, well, if they're not going to do anything about it, so if we can't do anything about it, they're not going to do anything about it. Who's going to do something? And Harry says, I am. He's one of the characters who's willing to take personal responsibility for things that are happening. You know, when he has the power to make a difference, he feels responsible to use it. And that's really, I think that's one of the core questions of the series is when you do have that power, do you have a responsibility to use it, and how far do you have an obligation to go? When do you have a responsibility to not use it? Those are all very viable questions, especially when you boil them down to a personal level. And while I don't ever write a book thinking this is what I'm going to say, I write a book thinking here's the situation and let me see how this plays out and what do I learn from having written this. And if I make some other people think too, so be it. Mostly what I want to do is just entertain. The books are intended to be popcorn, really, really good popcorn, but they're supposed to be entertainment books. They're not supposed to be statements of profound nature.
Well, one last question before we let you go out for the signing. Who would win in a fight, Harry Dresden or Harry Potter?
Oh, well, you'd never get Harry Dresden to take a swing at Harry Potter. He's a kid. He'd look at him and go, man, I was just like that when I was a kid. And besides which, Harry Potter doesn't have to, he really, he just has to say things in the right timing and swish his wand just right. And his magic works like that for him. Harry Dresden he's got a much more blue-collar form of magic to use, or he's got to dig in and actually do some business with physics in order to get anything to happen. So, yeah, I don't think Harry Dresden would have much of a chance.
Gotcha. Well, thank you, Mr. Butcher. It's been a pleasure, and appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Certainly. Thank you.